Good evening, I'm Jose Cardenas. Sheriff Joe Arpaio admits to violating several federal court orders resulting from a long-running racial profiling suit. Plus, Latinos honored for their role in helping to shape Arizona history. We'll talk to one of the honorees and learn how the city of Phoenix cleans up graffiti, and in Sounds of Cultura SOC, an art exhibition showcasing artwork by Latina artists. Tonight, all of this coming up next on Horizonte.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Sheriff Joe Arpaio is known for cracking down on illegal immigration. Sheriff Arpaio has now acknowledged he violated federal court orders in a racial profiling lawsuit. Joining me to talk about this is Regina Jeffries, an immigration attorney with law offices of Regina Jeffries. Regina, thanks for joining us on Horizonte. You've been on the show before. We've talked about this case before, but give our viewers just a quick summary of the lawsuit itself, and then we'll talk about the latest developments.
Right. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. But this lawsuit's been around since 2007, so it's been quite a while. It was initially filed by the ACLU on behalf of Latino residents of Arizona, as well as a Latino community group called Somos America. And what's happened since 2007 is actually quite a lot. In 2011, the federal court issued a preliminary injunction, just meaning essentially that Sheriff Joe Arpaio was enjoined or stopped from continuing to enforce federal immigration law at that time, in anticipation of further hearings on the matter. And then in 2013, Judge Snow actually issued a decision finding that Sheriff Joe Arpaio had actually violated the constitutional rights of Latino residents of Arizona by unlawfully and stopping them racially profiling. And so the federal court then entered an order appointing a federal monitor to monitor the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, mandating that traffic stops be audio and video recorded, and also mandating additional training for the Sheriff's Office. So it's been a long road, but where we're at right now actually has to do with the 2011 injunction that was put into place by Judge Snow.
And we're at a stage in the proceedings where civil contempt is being contemplated by the court for violating court orders. And perhaps the most surprising thing is we now have the Sheriff's Office's attorneys, the attorneys for Sheriff Arpaio personally, proposing to stipulate
That's right.
that they have been in contempt of court and proposing penalties themselves, all apparently in an attempt to avoid an evidentiary hearing.
Yeah, and that's sort of the general feeling of this. So the federal court, Judge Snow, actually has set an evidentiary hearing for April on the contempt issue. So to decide whether Sheriff Arpaio has violated the court's orders. And what Sheriff Joe Arpaio and his attorneys are doing with this, the motion that they've filed, is proposing to admit, or they're actually admitting to certain facts that essentially say that he has violated the federal judge's order, and proposing a punishment for that in order to not have to go through an evidentiary hearing.
Yeah, they're saying we don't need a hearing, Judge. We admit to everything, and we have a proposed remedy, and so you don't have to do anything. Why isn't that a good solution? Or is it a good solution?
I mean, it'd be a great solution probably for Sheriff Arpaio. As far as the plaintiff's case goes, though, you've got to kind of look at the history and the procedural history of this case, because there's been a lot that's gone on. I mean, in 2011, Sheriff Arpaio was actually sanctioned by the court for destroying documents that were relevant to discovery in this case. So there's sort of been a history of not disclosing, not fully disclosing things that Sheriff Arpaio was required to disclose by federal law. And so for the plaintiffs, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to say, oh, that's fine, we'll just go with what Sheriff Joe says and we'll forego the evidentiary hearing, because we don't even know all of the facts that might come out in this evidentiary hearing. So what he's proposing to admit to, we don't know if that's the full extent of what actually happened as far as violations that occurred of this court order.
Though I take it you would agree that what he's proposing to admit to is fairly extraordinary. I mean, unless he thought he'd really face some serious exposure to criminal contempt charges, you would think that he'd want to go into court and dispute this.
Right. Yeah, and I think that that's the issue, is that what he's actually admitting to is that he's admitting to violating the court order to prevent the sheriff's office from continuing to enforce federal immigration law. He's saying, yes, we did violate that order. We did not stop enforcing immigration law when we were supposed to.
And as I read the proposed stipulation or proposed findings, he's saying, I knew about it, but we didn't implement your ruling.
That's right. And so the question is, I think it becomes what the intent was behind that. I mean, whether it was actually knowing, whether it was on purpose. There's a lot of questions that I think are going to be answered in this evidentiary hearing, and I don't know that it's going to go the way that Sheriff Arpaio wants it to.
And there are a couple of other things that they're admitting to, just a general summary of that.
Right. Another thing that they're admitting to is that they didn't disclose in pretrial discovery. So they didn't disclose that there were video and audio recordings of certain traffic stops. So that's another thing. And then also they weren't working with the monitor the court-ordered monitor as they should have been. They didn't disclose certain things along those lines either. So. And
with respect to the videos and other tapes, as I understand it, one of the issues here, or one of the things that they're admitting to, is that the judge told them to gather that information once it became known to the court, but to do so quietly.
Correct.
And they didn't do it that way.
That's right. They didn't actually do that way at all, and they didn't inform the monitor that they were doing that either. So
what do you expect is going to happen? Let's assume that I take it, for one thing, you don't think the plaintiffs are going to agree to avoid to not have an evidentiary hearing.
I don't want to speak for the plaintiff's attorney, but I think it would be hard to say that they would agree to this, especially since there is an evidentiary hearing scheduled. Sheriff Joe is scheduled to be deposed. I think there's probably a lot more that could come out of this than is in this order.
And the deposition would be testimony in front of a court reporter under oath.
Correct.
In advance of the evidentiary hearing.
That's
and
right.
They're trying to avoid that as well?
That's right.
And so let's assume the hearing takes place, and I think it's scheduled for 4 days, late April 21st to the 24th. What do you think is going to happen after that? The judge has urged the parties to try and settle if they can.
Right.
What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on what comes out in the hearings. I mean, I think that we'll have to see what additional facts, if any, come out. And if no additional facts come out, then the parties will have to look at, okay, what is the sheriff proposing here, and perhaps this is a starting point for them. But I think it's really hard to believe that no other facts are going to come out in that evidentiary hearing.
So one last question. There are people, Supervisor Gallardo for one, who are saying just what he's willing to admit right now should be enough to require him, or he should step down from office. What do you think is going to happen there?
Well, I think that it also sort of depends on what ultimately ends up happening with whether there are criminal contempt charges and whatnot. I think Sheriff Joe's been pretty unapologetic about some of his stances and some of the things that he's done in the past. So having him willingly step down, I don't know if he's going to do that, but I think that the pressure will mount for sure.
Regina Jeffries, thanks for joining us on Horizonte to talk about this. It's been going on for a long time. It looks like it's coming to an end.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
To find out more information about what's on Horizonte, go to azpbs.org and click on the Horizonte tab at the top of the screen. There you can access many features to become a more informed Horizonte viewer. Watch interviews by clicking on the video button or by scrolling down to the bottom of the page for the most recent segments. Learn about more specific topics like arts and culture and immigration. You can also find out what's on Horizonte for the upcoming week. If you would like an RSS feed, a podcast, or you want to buy a video, that's all on our website too. Other features include our collection of website links and a special page for educators. While you're there, show your support for Horizonte with just one click. Discover all that's on Horizonte. Visit azpbs.org, Horizonte today.
Next month, 4 women will be honored at the 7th Annual Arizona Latina Trailblazers event presented by the Raul H. Castro Institute of Phoenix College. Joining me to talk about the event is Trino Sandoval, Executive Director for the Raul H. Castro Institute at Phoenix College, and Dr. Nancy Gonzalez, who is one of the honorees. Welcome to both of you. You've both been on the show before, you more recently for some of the work that you're being honored for at this event. But before we talk about that, Trino, give us a quick thumbnail sketch of the Institute itself, and then let's talk about this particular event, which is in what, its 7th year?
This is the 7th year,
Wow.
yes. The Raul H. Castro Institute was established in 2006 at the request of then Governor Janet Napolitano to honor Governor Castro, and also so that we can develop research in the areas of education, leadership, health, and human services.
And for those who may not remember or know, Governor Castro was the first elected Hispanic governor of the state of Arizona.
Yes, and the only one so far, 1974, I believe, to 1976.
So let's talk about the Latina Trailblazers event. It is, as we mentioned, in its 7th year. What was its genesis, and what are we going to see this year?
What we want to do is we want to publicly recognize the contributions that these 4 women have made to their professions, and we also want to make sure that we document and that we preserve their life stories by creating a video documentary of their work, and also we do biographies that we provide to people electronically and also in print. Another component that's very important for the reason we do this is that we create curriculum that we provide to school teachers so they can use the DVDs and the biographies in their classrooms as well.
Dr. Gonzalez, how did you find out that you were going to be honored, and what's your reaction to that?
Well, I had not known that I was nominated, so when I received a phone call about the award, I was first shocked, but completely humbled and honored to be among women who've come before me who've been selected for this award. It's quite kind of overwhelming to have this type of recognition.
And what do you think is the significance of this kind of recognition, not only for yourself, but for others in the community?
Well, it's interesting to hear how they try to use the material. I think the significance is to recognize the very different and important ways that Latinas have made a contribution to our culture, to our community. And what's very impressive about the award is the wide range of professions that they pull in giving this recognition.
And Trino, let's talk about the other recipients, actually, of the award, just briefly.
Well, we have selected 4 women. As you know, Dr. Gonzalez is one of them. We have also selected Patricia Preciado, who is a Tucson author. We have selected Elvira Espinosa, who's a trailblazer in journalism and Spanish print media. And we have also selected Representative Rebecca Rios, who currently is the highest ranking Latina in an elected office in the state.
And remind me again, when is the event, and how big of a crowd do you expect?
The event is on Wednesday, April 29th, from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Phoenix Art Museum. The event is open and free to the public, and we have a capacity to receive up to 500 people there.
Dr. Gonzalez, we should say a little bit about the work that you've been doing, which is one of the reasons that you're being honored. We've talked about it a little bit on the show, but just give us a summary.
Well, I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm a research scientist, and I'm very interested in understanding what contributes to the positive development of families and youth. And it's been very important to me in that work to make sure that the strengths of our culture are represented in how we think about why youth do well, what are factors that we can strengthen in order to prevent them from developing problems. So I've had a combination of research that is broad community-based research as well as intervention research. And last time I was here, I was talking about some of the intervention work. But I've also been working with a large group of wonderful collaborators at ASU trying to study families in our community for, more than 15, 20 years. We've had some ongoing studies really trying to better understand how we can help our community.
And last question, I take it events like this, which provide positive role models, are one of those things that we can do to improve the situation.
Exactly. I mean, one of the probably the strongest messages that we've learned from our research is that opportunities to strengthen a sense of pride and culture are very, very important for youth. So this is another way that we can do it, as well as the arts, strengthening culture of family and in our schools, etc. So yes, this is a prime example of how we can do that.
Dr. Gonzalez, congratulations on your award. Trino, congratulations on what looks to be another great event.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
The City of Phoenix is calling on people and groups to help wipe out graffiti. Producer Christina Estes and photographer Kyle Mounts show us how it's being done.
We have 334 homes here. We have single-family homes and townhomes. It's an older community. We have a lot of mature landscaping. The trees are so beautiful. It's just this neat little oasis right in the center of town.
But sometimes ugliness creeps into Nancy Blabe's neighborhood.
Because we are right next to an easement behind us, there's a lot of foot traffic that can take place back there. And unfortunately, that can also be seen as a big place that's dark with not a lot of activity, great for tagging.
Every year, the city of Phoenix spends more than $2 million on its Graffiti Buster program. That only covers 16 workers and the equipment used by the Neighborhood Services Department.
You have to think about all the other entities that are removing graffiti. Parks Department, Streets Department, Public Works Department, Aviation, all the other city departments. Then you start thinking about the public entities, SRP, APS, the businesses, the people that never report it. It just goes on and on into a very expensive proposition.
Bruce Nelson manages the Graffiti Buster program. He says the issue runs deeper than aesthetics.
If you're a business and you're trying to generate people to come into your business and there's graffiti on your property or nearby, often people will drive by, and therefore you're hurting businesses and future jobs.
Nelson says there are two types of graffiti vandals: taggers who leave their personal marks and gang members who mark their territory.
Most people cannot tell a tagger from a gang. So if my house or my property is tagged, why? Who did this? Are they trying to send a message?
It makes me crazy.
Nancy Blabe is sending her own message.
I'm a blight buster.
She spends 8 hours a month volunteering as a blight buster.
It's one thing to see what's around us, and it's easy to expect someone else to do that. But I think that there's a lot of personal satisfaction in being that person who contributes to the cleanup and to keeping your community nice.
While volunteers and city workers arm themselves with paint, the city also runs a reward program where anonymous callers who report graffiti vandals can earn cash if it leads to someone being caught.
The typical person that does tagging is usually a teenage boy. They start about 7th or 8th grade, and sometimes if they don't have an intervention, they'll continue this behavior into their adulthood, and it almost becomes an addictive behavior.
Without tips and volunteers, Nelson says the city could never cover so much graffiti. That's why they provide the training, tools, and thanks.
I've been in other volunteer programs, and sometimes you just kind of feel like you're investing your time, you're investing your energy, who cares? But the people who are in place with this program, they touch base with us, they email us, the staff are super nice, they're very responsive, they get us the things that we need so that we know that what we're doing matters.
The city also lends paint sprayers and tools for groups holding community cleanups. You can get more information by visiting the Neighborhood Services Department at phoenix.gov. In tonight's Sounds of Cultura SOC, Entre Nosotras is holding an art exhibition here in Phoenix. Nosotras Somos showcases Chicana, Latina, Indigenous, and Latin American Arizona-based artists. Joining me is Vanessa Nielsen de Molina, member of Entre Nosotras, and Carolina Mesquita, a senior in high school and one of the artists in the exhibition. Welcome to our show. It's good to have you here. We're honored to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Let's talk a little bit about the organization and this particular event, and then we'll get to some of the specifics, some of the beautiful artwork that you're responsible for.
Sure. So Entre Nosotras is a collective that was started in 2012. A group of us that were affiliated with ASU, some grad students, undergrads, and faculty. We realized that we were all interested in the same sort of issues, so transnational, Chicana, Latina, Indigenous issues, social justice movements, culture. We wanted to extend those conversations outside of the classroom and relate them to Arizona's socio-political climate and do it through the arts. So we've been producing about 2 or 3 events a year since then that try to bring those conversations into the community. We've had a concert, some film screenings, performance, and then this exhibition is our first foray into the visual arts, the exhibition that's on at the Hive Art Gallery.
And Entre Nosotras means amongst us. And then you have, as the title for the exhibition, Nosotras Somos, we are. What's the significance of that?
Most of the pieces that we got, we issued kind of a broad call to artists. So the call was just for artists to send in things that related to the themes that we're interested in, social justice. But a lot of the things that we ended up getting were faces, self-portraits, and just the way the artists felt being Chicana, Latinas, Indigenous, or Latin American and living in Arizona. So because we ended up getting so many faces, we thought that Nosotras Somos seemed an appropriate title for the kind of work that we received.
Carolina, you're in high school.
Yes.
Your work is magnificent. I've seen it. We're going to see some pictures in a moment. Tell us a little bit about your background, because I understand that the pieces you've done are intended to reflect your heritage.
Well, I spent a lot of time growing up in Arizona, but my family is originally from Brazil, and I did spend a little bit of time as a kid growing up in Argentina. And so I have, come from kind of a somewhat muddled cultural and ethnic and linguistic background. And growing up in Arizona, that sometimes was a little bit difficult because there was kind of a need to constantly communicate that with my classmates and my friends. And so coming from that background, something that I like to communicate in my art is kind of the chaos that comes along with that experience. And some of the images are a little bit, chaotic, and they draw from, many different sources of inspiration, and there are many images within one larger image usually.
And we've got the first one of the 2 that you have in the exhibition up on the screen, and we're going to show the other one. Explain to us how these reflect that what you refer to as your muddled background in these images.
Well, as you can see, I guess, again, there are many sources of inspiration, and like this one in particular, I used many different, I guess, non-traditional.
This is mixed media.
Mixed media, yeah.
So tell us about the elements.
For example, one of my favorite parts is on the shoulder there. You can see that I used dried flowers. I flattened them in between 2 books, and then I kept them there, and then I glued them onto the page. And I used acrylic and gouache and watercolor, all within the same work. And I also used just, I guess, many different, materials to create one image that I guess I think communicates kind of like not only the chaos that I mentioned before, but also kind of the melancholia that I guess also comes along with that experience, and with the experience of being an adolescent too. That is something that I think comes along very obviously in my work too.
And what we see here, Vanessa, is a fantastic young artist, but you also have some very well-established artists in this exhibition. And I understand from discussion you and I had off camera, you were a little surprised at the wealth of responses that you got.
We were, and we wanted it to be that way. We wanted it to be very inclusive, and anybody who considered herself an artist was welcome to join the show. We actually have a piece from one of the daughters of one of the members of our collective, who, I don't know how old Milagro is, but she's maybe 9. So we definitely have a broad range of work included, and that was purposeful.
And we've got some images we're going to put up on the screen very quickly that just kind of show the theme that you were talking about, kind of the images, the faces, the self-portraits in many ways. We'll just run them as we're wrapping up this interview. Tell us again when the exhibition is and some of the events associated with it.
Sure, so the exhibition runs through April 18th. We have an event this Friday, a Meet the Artist event. Carolina will be there. That's from 6 to 9 at the Hive. And we also have a printmaking workshop Saturday, March 28th from 1 to 3 with artist Gabriela Munoz. And then our last one will be a panel discussion, some members of the collective and visual artist Annie Lopez. And that is April 10th from 7 to 9 also at the Hive. So
as we can see from these images and from the work that we saw already of your work, Carolina, this is a magnificent exhibition, and we thank you both for joining us on Horizonte to talk about it. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is our show for tonight. From all of us here at 8 in Horizonte, thank you for watching. I'm Jose Cardenas. Have a good evening.
Funding for Horizonte is made possible by contributions by the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station.